not in where I normally do my videos. I'm in my front room of the house where we have a lot of our inventory stored. And of course, over this way, I have my photographing table. So let me flip the camera around. I'm going to show you what the topic of today is going to be. All right, guys, as you can see, this topic is going to be on flatware. This lot here that I have on the table is both Silverplate and stainless. And this is a topic that I'm just trying to get into myself. I am not an expert by any means, but I have learned a couple of cool things along the way, and I figured that I'd share that info with you. Now, this was a bulk buy that I bought. This was the actual box that I found at a garage sale, and as you can see, I paid only $5 for everything here. And I actually spent most of the day identifying the patterns. So you can see that I have little signs on all these things. But that actually about identification will become a little bit later on in the video. But what I wanted to do first off was explain a few things about cleaning flatware. And that's kind of really the taboo subject because, you know, when it comes to, let's say, coins or whatever, the patina that are on old coins is you don't really want to mess with that, right? Because when you clean a coin, it actually takes away the value. But in my mind, when I'm seeing something like this, I'm seeing a lot of hidden potential here. And for me personally, I don't really care for the tarnished look, right? Obviously, when you think of silverware or flatware, you think of something like this, which is stainless. It's supposed to be, you know, silvery and nice and neat. And even though that these have a nice patina on them, I think that we can do a little bit better with them. And in fact, this set here should look something like this right here. And this is a set that I just cleaned through a process that I'm going to walk you through. And hopefully we'll be able to take something looking like this and turn it into something like this. And as you can see here, this is really, in my mind, better looking. Now, of course, it is still aged. There are still some wear spots, and that's normal. You're going to find that. Nothing's going to be perfect unless it's brand new. But I think from a buyer standpoint, maybe looking at something like this as you're scrolling through eBay may be a little bit more advantageous than that. Of course, that's subjective, and there are people that would probably jump at something like that just because it looks old and that's what they're going for. But if you are the type that wants to learn how to maybe clean up some Silverplate flatware like this, then stay tuned because I'm going to walk you through the process. So again, I am not an expert, and I'm going to put that disclaimer out there right now. But I'm going to kind of do a memory dump or a brain dump and show you guys everything that I've learned so far, and we'll walk through this together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out a few pieces to start with. I think I'm going to do this because these are, I think, the most tarnished. So this is the Oneida Beethoven, and it's got some pretty ornate stuff there. And of course, if you ever look at the back of this stuff, sometimes it will tell you the company. This says Oneida. It doesn't tell you it doesn't tell you the style, or it doesn't tell you the pattern, but it says Oneida Community, so it can give you a little bit of a clue to where to start. But as you can see, that spoon is horribly tarnished. There is no or little to no reflectivity there. So this will be a good candidate. So again, Oneida Community. So I spent a good portion of the day kind of separating these all out, looking up the patterns, which again I'll go into later. But I'm going to bring those pieces and maybe a few others into the kitchen, and we'll take the next step. All right, so here's everything that we are going to need to do this cleaning experiment. What I have here is a plastic bin with some aluminum foil on the inside, and it's the shiny side up. And some of the videos that I was researching earlier mentioned that the shiny side needed to be up. And again, I'm not a chemist, I am not a scientist. I don't know if all of these ingredients are necessary, but I know that it did work before, and I'm just going to walk you through exactly what I had done. So over here I have a pot of water. The water is heating, and like I said, I have a plastic bin with the aluminum foil on the inside. I have baking soda and I have salt. And those are the only things that we're going to need. And I did get some extra because I'm probably going to be cleaning all of the flatware this evening. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with some baking soda. I'm not measuring it, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I am actually covering the bottom, and this has been open for a while, so it's chunky. That's why I got some new stuff. And I'm grabbing the salt, and in goes the salt. Again, I'm not measuring, I'm just adding. And the only thing left we have to do is wait for the water. So again, tin foil or aluminum foil, baking soda, salt, and hot water. So once the water gets hot, I'll bring you back and we'll take the next step. Well, as you can see, the water is almost ready. It is getting pretty hot. There was a couple of things that I neglected to mention before. I am going to be using some tongs, obviously, to take the silverware in and out of the bin, because I don't want to be touching the extraordinarily hot water without those. The other thing that you might want to get is an old dish towel. Don't use your best one. Once the flatware comes out of the solution, I typically put it on here and buff it out really well, just clean it off. If there is any extra tarnish that is coming off as a result of the rubbing, of course you don't want to use a good towel, so just make sure that you can use one of your not good towels if you have one. So again, this is almost at a boil, or it's near. I don't think it has to be boiling per se. And there's two ways that we can do this. I can either add the flatware into the bin first and then add the water. But I think what I'm going to do is add the water first and then add the flatware to it, so we can kind of do an experiment and see. Because I'm only going to put a portion of it in here and to see, because the last time that I did this, you could literally watch the tarnish come off. It was actually kind of a cool thing. Oh my gosh, do you hear it? The ice cream man is outside. But we can't let him detract from this experiment. All right, almost done with the water. Now again, when you pour the water in here, I do have a dish towel underneath the bin in the event that I just didn't want anything to happen to either the bin or the countertop underneath. When you do pour the water in, it will fizz and it will be kind of, I don't want to say explosive, but there's definitely a lot going on. So just be careful of that. And I'm going to try to do this while filming this all myself. A little bit difficult to do, but I'm going to give it a go. So the water is almost ready. I'm not going to wait for it to fully boil. I don't think that really matters. I am going to turn off the heat. I'm going to get the top off. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to slowly pour it in here. Again, it is fizzing. Pouring a little bit in there. You can see it's fizzing. And I'm going to take the piece, I'm going to have it in contact with the aluminum foil. I'm just going to kind of put it right down in there. And I'm going to put the fork in there too. So I'm just going to give it some time here. Just going to let it soak. And actually already it looks like there is something happening with the handle of that one. And again, this might take a few treatments. This is why I wanted to do this one in particular, because they were pretty bad. And you know what? It might not work. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't measure any of the ingredients earlier. I definitely didn't measure the ingredients this time. I'm not seeing as a dramatic change as what I saw last time. That's okay. What I can also do is add more baking soda and more salt. What will happen? What will happen? I'm not seeing a big shift on these, and I was surprised. I thought I was going to see a more dramatic shift. that's okay. That's all part of the process. All right, I'm gonna let these sit. I'm gonna grab two other ones. These were the other piece, the ones that kind of had the more colorful tarnish on there. And I do see almost a dramatic, instantaneous change when I put that one in. So maybe it's the kind of tarnish that's on there. I don't know. Actually, look at that. Look at that difference. The tips of the fork were out, and I didn't get the solution on them yet. The main section of the fork had it on there. In fact, you can see. Look at that. It's changed right before the eyes there. That's cool. So, a spoon, flip that over. So it definitely appears to be working a little bit better, these other two. So that's interesting. Interesting result. So I said I'm not a scientist, but this is honestly an experiment, so we'll see how this works. All right, so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out this one because it did work a little bit better. Wow. And I still see around the bowl there's some darkness. So I might just leave that in there for a little bit longer. This one, I am now going to wipe off, and I'll compare it with one of the other ones. It's going to be a little bit hard to see just because of the lighting in here too, but that's a dramatic difference. There's no more tarnish on there. Now there is some maybe residual stuff from the solution that I might want to rinse off with water, but just to do kind of a side-by-side comparison, wow, that's a big difference. And the last batch that I did took a couple of baths, so I actually heated up the water twice. I emptied it out. So it might take a couple of different tries depending on how much tarnish you are dealing with. So let me grab this one. Again, that's a huge difference. I am seeing some darkness around this side and definitely there. So again, I don't know if another treatment is going to help that. These still look the same. I'm kind of disappointed. I'm not giving up, but definitely not what I was expecting. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to reset the system. I'm going to get these out. I'm going to refill up this with baking soda and salt. I'm going to dump the water, obviously. I'll get a new batch of water heating, and then we'll try this one more time. So I've just dumped the water out of the bin. I have another batch of water heating. I'm going to change this up just a little bit. What I'm going to do this time is that I'm actually going to put the pieces in the bin ahead of time. Really shouldn't matter, but I've seen it done both ways. And I'm just going to try to fit them in there the best that I can. And at this point, I need to open up the baking soda. Can't do that one-handed. One sec. Okay, so I have the box of baking soda. I am going to give a very nice dusting. It's hard to do this and film at the same time. I'm going to take this new salt that I opened up. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put these really bad ones back in here again. And I'm going to add some more baking soda on that. And some more salt. All right, and we wait for the water again. All right, so the water is nearing a boil. You can see it bubbling down there. So I'm going to give it just a few more moments. Again, we have the pre-sprinkled flatware with the baking soda and the salt. I'm gonna say that's probably good with the water. Turn off the heat. Take off the lid. Again, slowly pour, be careful, it is hot and it will bubble. I add a little bit more water this time than what I did before. But already you can see some of the pieces are dramatically different. Not the two that I originally started with. I'm surprised at that, to be honest. And it might just be that there's some things on there that isn't technically tarnish. I don't know. It's a whole new world of experimentation for me. You can kind of see that one a little bit dark. But some of them are looking better, for sure. I'm just kind of shaking them around just to loosen up anything that might be on them. So let me see, let me take out one, and that has, I don't know if you can see that, it's got a little bit of darkness right there in the handle. I'm going to bring it over here and just give it a good buff. Sometimes that tarnish will come off on the rag. So yeah, it lightened it up a little bit for sure. I mean, it's not 100%, it's not like the ones that I did earlier, but it's definitely different. It's definitely better than what it was. And again, it might just be that I'm not patient enough, or maybe there's just a weird type of tarnish on these that I didn't have before. Look at that. What is that? Oh, spider. My goodness. So, I mean, definitely an improvement. Like I said, I may have to do this again. There's some darkness here, but definitely better than what it was. Okay, that's interesting. This was the one that I was actually hoping, whoops, this was the one that I was hoping would come very clean, and it didn't. And I'm kind of shocked, but again, that's why we do this. And it's not really helping with the buff. It's better, you can definitely see. I think this one just had so much on there that it would benefit from at least a couple of treatments, if not more. I think it's just going to take a lot of extra work. So I'm going to work with it off camera. I mean, you can almost feel that stuff on there. I mean, look, it's coming off on my finger. So it's definitely loosening it up. I think these are just going to be a little bit more to work with. So let me work on these a few more times, and I'll show you the results in a little bit. So I am partially through the next batch, and I wanted to show you guys one thing. So on this, you can kind of see that the tip, the handle of this one, I don't know if it will come through on camera, but it's a little bit dark. I don't know if I can contrast it against something. You can see that the fine details, like the relief is clear, but the background is almost like it's black. There's still some tarnish in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet it. And I can't really do this one-handed, but I'm going to sprinkle some baking soda on there while it's wet. So now you see that I have sprinkled some baking soda right on there. And I'll try to do this one-handed. I'm just gonna rub that right in, because you know it's in a mild abrasive. It's used for cleaning. But I think once you rinse that off, if you can see through, that background is now as it should be. It's not black. So that baking soda kind of in the fine details really got in there and did the trick. So that's another aspect that you can try if the whole scale soaking doesn't take everything off. So let me continue the process and I'll be back. So I finished up the batch off camera and I brought everything back to my photographing area, and I think the results are fairly dramatic. I'm actually happier with them than what I originally was thinking when how they were going to turn out. So as you can see, the ones on the left were the original ones that we started with. So that I had a set of 8, so I grabbed 4, and you can see that there's a dramatic difference. You can see that the amount of tarnish on there versus that. Big time difference. Same thing with the spoons. I actually grabbed 5 by mistake, but you can see, I mean, look at the handles there. Just a dramatic difference. It makes me much more willing to photograph these and list these for sure. I mean, even the fine details have been cleaned. And I think what's most dramatic were these. You remember how black those were? I mean, there was no reflectivity hardly whatsoever. And now, look at how brilliant that is. And these did take some work, I'm not going to lie. It took some buffing with the cloth. I did the technique where I put the baking soda around here and I rubbed it really gently, but I got a lot of that tarnish off, and I think it turned out great. I mean, look at how beautiful that is. The details are fully showing. Now there are some defects obviously in the metal, which you're not going to be able to fix, and that just happens over time. But a before and after, I don't know if I have a screenshot where I can do a before and after, if I can put one up on the screen. But that is now something that I'd be proud to put up on eBay for sure. But the difference is quite amazing. Again, it does take some work, right? It's not an instantaneous thing. These ones over here, for whatever reason, these were almost a no-brainer. I dropped them in, literally, I watched the tarnish disappear, and I buffed them clean. And I thought, oh man, if it was that easy with all of them, that would be great. But I'm actually almost pleased that it didn't turn out that easy. But regardless, the results speak for themselves, I think. So that's kind of the end of part 1, to be able to clean this stuff, right? I think it's just a dramatic difference. So the next step is, well, now that we have it clean, how do we look it up? How do we know, besides the maker, what pattern this is? And I'm going to show you a really kind of a cool trick that I recently learned about to show you what that is. So stay tuned. So on my mobile phone, I'm going to open up a web browser and I'm going to go to replacements.com. Now this is a cool site which sells individual pieces for china or glassware, but obviously I'm interested in the silver and flatware section. And they have a tool, and if you look at the very top of the search field, there's a red camera icon. And if you click on that, it's almost like a Google image tool where you can choose the type of item that you're wanting to look up. And so in this case, I'm going to be choosing the silver and flatware icon. And from there, it's going to say, hey, you can choose an existing photo from your phone, or you can use the camera and take a live photo. And so I'm going to choose that option where I am going to pull up the piece that I have in front of me, which I want to identify. And at this point, I'm just kind of adjusting the lights just to make sure that I get as many of the details as I can visible in the camera mode. And so once I have that kind of centered and lit the way that I want, I am going to make sure it's in focus, and I'm going to snap that photo. So once the photo is set, you can click Use Photo and then crop down to only the portions that you want the tool to search in. And so once you have that kind of centered up, you can click Submit. And of course, there is a disclaimer that comes up that says, hey, this tool is great, but just double check your results. So as you are scrolling down on the page, you're given the first option, which the tool thinks your piece may be. And in this case, it's the Modern Baroque by Oneida. And so I'm going to click on the individual salad fork listed there. And it comes up to the entire pattern page. And I'm going to click on the fork. And I can zoom into the details and kind of compare it to what I have in front of me. Now, I actually like doing this portion of it on the desktop site, because as you move your mouse over the piece that's shown, there's kind of a magnification window that comes up, so you don't have to zoom in and out of the page here. When you do it on the mobile phone, it's a little bit pixelated, it's a little bit blurry. So I actually, again, like doing this portion on the desktop site. I just click in, or I type in the name of the piece that comes up, and I can click from there. After reviewing what I had in front of me based on this one, I noticed that it's not identical. There are some differences that I can easily tell and pick apart. So I'm going to go back to my search results. I'm going to scroll down to the next pattern listed there, and that's the one called Beethoven. So again, I'm going to find my salad fork, and I'm going to click on that, click on the individual salad fork there, zoom in, and sure enough, I can obviously tell now, because of the details, they're all present in the one that's in front of me. And this one here, there's a flower or a rose at the very tip of the handle, and that's the identification marker for me, showing me that this is exactly what I have. And the tool actually does a pretty good job. Like I said, I had a number of different patterns in front of me that I spent photographing and kind of refining and searching through, and it really does a good job. Now, again, it's not perfect, but it's a very, very cool tool to be able to help you easily identify the patterns that you have. All right, everyone, it's about an hour and a half later, and as you can see, I've cleaned all of the pieces, and I think they look fantastic. Now, I'm not going for perfection. I'm just definitely looking for a better visual presentation for my listings. And I think that these really turned out really well. Now, there were some ones that still have some discoloration, and that could either be just lingering tarnish that may or may not come off, or there may be a problem with the metal itself. I just don't know. But at this point, overall, they all look better. So I'm fine with where they are. And I really don't think this is any different than, if I'm cleaning shoes, if I'm taking time to clean those to make those look nice for presentation purposes, or if I'm a clothing seller, if I'm, trying to get out some stains or whatever. I just don't think that's anything different than what I did here tonight. And so I'm curious to know your thoughts. If you guys think that this would be a beneficial process in your workflow, if this is a kind of item that you've never really worked with before, and if you think that this might be something that, after learning these quick and easy steps for not only cleaning but pattern identification, if this is something that you might think about picking up in the future. So let me know in the comments what you think below. Hopefully you learned something. And I guess with that, we'll catch you on the next one.